Saludos, compadres. You know, the other day I was watching a feud being settled here. Well, I guess you'd call it a feud. A couple of cowboys owned property and they kind of got into it. I'll tell you how it happened. You see, they lived on land that belonged to their daddy, and he went ahead and when he'd passed on, he willed it to both of them. Well, so one boy takes one half of the farm, the other one takes the other half, and they'd been there. They'd been going on a long time. They were old cattlemen. I mean, they'd had that farm between them for almost 35 years, side by side, and they were sharing the plowing and the cattle roundups, and they were just having a good time. In other words, everything they needed with each other, they just kind of loaned it and were glad to do it. But one day that kind of fell apart. You see, it all started just with a small misunderstanding, and that grew into a major problem. Ain't that the way it is with all of us? And finally, it just exploded into an exchange of some of the rottenest bitter words and weeks and silence, and pretty soon that went on to months and then a year, and then one morning, I was watching over there, and I saw a old boy come over to walk, and he was carrying a carpenter's toolbox, and the old farmer, one of the oldest of the two brothers, was out there working, and he says to him, he says, you know, I sure could use a few days' work. Maybe you got some small jobs here that I could help you with. Well, sir, that older brother says, well, I have a job for you. I want you to look across the creek at that farm. You see, that's my neighbor. In fact, that's my younger brother. Last year, there was a meadow between us. Last week, it was filling up with water. And you know why? Because he took his bulldozer to the river down the way, and he cut a new channel. And it took a while for the water, but now there's a creek between us. Well, he probably did that to spite me, but I want you to help me do him one better. You see, I got a big pile of lumber by the barn here, and I don't have the time to do it, but I need someone to build me a fence, about a 8-foot high fence, so I don't need to see his place or his face anymore. Well, that carpenter says, I think I understand the situation. Where do you keep your nails and the post hole digger and all the other stuff to do this job? And I'll do one that I know you'll like, and I'll be quite reasonable with you. Well, that old boy said, go for it. So he helps him get the materials ready and takes them down by the creek and everything, but he has to go into town early the next morning, and the farmer, that carpenter got busy right then. He was really working, and he worked hard all the day while that farmer was gone, and about sunset, just when that farmer was returning, why, that carpenter had finished the whole job. I'll tell you, the funny thing is, that farmer looks over there and says, what? He said, that ain't no fence there. That's a bridge. You build a bridge, go from one side of the creek to the other. Why'd you do that? Well, the carpenter said, he did a good piece of work. I put on handrails and everything. And about that time, here comes his younger brother just coming towards him, walking out to that bridge with his arms. He says, you know, brother, you are full of love to build a bridge after all the dumb things I've said and done. Well, they stood at the end of the bridge there looking at each other, and all of a sudden they just went right to the middle, and they just took each other's hand, and they hugged, and then they turned to see the carpenter pick up his toolbox and start off. And he said, wait a minute, I haven't paid you yet. Besides that, I got a lot of other things you can do for both of us. Carpenter says, you know, I got a lot more bridges to build, and a lot more people that should do it for themselves and not wait for other people, but I'm always happy to be here for you. And friends, ain't that the truth? That's the way God is, ain't it? Well, God bless y'all, and I guess this is adios, compadres, until next week.